What's the most disturbing piece of audio there is? The 911 call of Loretta Pickard, a disabled elderly woman who died in a house fire. She was physically unable to get out of the house on her own. There were firefighters outside her house, but due to a miscommunication, they thought the house was empty. On the call, you hear the woman talking as the fire gets worse and she gets closer to death. The Weepy Voiced Killer. He killed women, completely mutilated them and proceeded to call the police while crying about what happened and how he can't stop himself. Then he'd hang up and do it again. Since other people are mentioning videos with horrible audio, that one of the nightclub burning down. The sounds of people screaming trying to get out of the crush and then burning to death is just awful. The Ruth Price 911 call where she's this old woman living alone in her apartment when some stranger keeps trying to get in. He eventually does, and then she can be heard screaming for her life. I think he was stabbing her. Fortunately, she survived and lived another 14 years. Pretty sure it was used to train dispatch in the past for how horrific the audio is. The 911 call from one of the teachers present at the Columbine school shooting. You can hear the gunshots and the gunmen cheering and whooping. You also hear when they enter the library, which is where they killed the most students. It's chilling. The woman who helped build the case against Jared from Subway by recording him talking about his enjoyment of pedophilia. Listening to a couple minutes of him describing what he's done made me want to vomit. The process of getting this stuff on tape wrecked the woman's mental health, and it's easy to see why. I'm sure others have mentioned it, but one that really, truly upset me was when a poor delivery lady had mistakenly driven into flood waters. She called 911 and the dispatcher was cruel beyond words. I'll never forget it. A 911 call of a little girl who had just found her brother in his room after he committed suicide. The most heartbreaking part is when she screams, "Why did you do it?" The 911 call of the lady stuck in her car in a flood and the operator is so unhelpful, she ends up drowning on the other end of the phone. That 911 call from the guy trapped in one of the Twin Towers. The cult leader from the documentary Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, where he records his rape of a young girl in his secret room in which only the most devout followers are allowed. It's haunting. The 911 call of the woman whose chimp was eating her friend's face. For me personally, it's audio and video. It's a grandmother who killed her son-in-law and for some reason the police bring in the woman's young granddaughter/daughter of the victim. And the grandmother is insane and asks for a hug and the little girl screams, "No, you killed me, Daddy." I honestly have no idea why the police brought in the girl, it's horrible. The 911 call from the attack of Travis the chimpanzee. Travis' screams can be heard in the background at the start of the tape as Harold, owner of Travis, pleads for the police, who initially believed the call to be a hoax until she said, "He's eating her." Jared from Subway talking about how he likes kids who come from bad homes because they are easier to manipulate into having sex. Don't listen to it. The Apollo 1 crew. This one is accompanied by video, but the reaction of a man whose wife gets killed when a brick flies off the back of a truck they were driving behind on a highway and came through their windshield. The audio was captured by their dash cam, one of those things you can't unhear. Jim Jones talking into a microphone while his followers poison their children. I'd venture that the Toolbox Killer's audio recording of them torturing and raping Shirley Ledford is probably pretty high up on the list. It has never been released to the public or leaked, but there does exist the full transcript online. The 911 call Jennifer Pan made after she hired people to try and kill her parents. At one point her surviving father starts shouting and yelling in the background. This is after he had been shot multiple times, I think one of which may have been to his head or neck. When I tell you that I can still hear her father's screams, I mean it. It might not be the worst thing on here, but it's fucking harrowing. Accompanied by video, but a lot of the school children who drowned on the MV Sewol recorded short video clips as the ship was sinking. Hearing the crew telling the students over loudspeaker to stay in place and stay on board is absolutely chilling. The children make snide remarks about how crazy it is to stay on board with the ship listing so far, but they remain in place. The voicemail my stepfather left my mom the morning of 9/11. He worked on the 99th floor, and called to tell us he was okay, and was making his way down the stairs. He said he would call us again when he was outside. He never did. In the call, you can hear him telling others to keep their heads down, out of the smoke, but what really makes the audio as disturbing as it is the screaming. The screams in the background are some of the most bone-chillingly real terror I think I've ever heard. Warren Jeffs, of the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints, tape recorded himself raping a 12-year-old. The most disturbing audio I've heard. That girl who called her mom as she was being eaten by a bear. Edit, the girl's name was Olga Mosklyova. A few people have said it was a hoax, however, I have been unable to find any evidence that it is, in fact, a hoax. Although hopefully it was. No one should die like that, and no one should hear their child die like that. By all accounts, it's the Norris and Bittaker tapes. Otherwise known as the Toolbox Killers. I've seen a transcript. Deeply unpleasant stuff. The guy whose scuba kit fucked up and he sunk a few hundred feet and couldn't rise again and you could just hear the muffled screaming noises under his mask. Edit, he died on the bottom of the sea and his kit was recovered with the audio and body a while after. Source for those interested. The Golden State Killer phone tapes, where he calls his victims for years after the crimes to taunt them, always gives me chills. I'd imagine the tape of 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey's rape and murder made by the Moore's murderers would be a contender. It's never been released, thankfully, though I've seen plenty of interviews with the policemen who had to listen to tape and you can just see on their faces how much it affected them. The mom screaming her heart out when she walks in on her son who just blasted his face off with a shotgun. It's from the 4chan kid suicide video years ago. Yeah, the gore was pretty intense, but it was so quick you don't really process it. Then his mom comes home with his little sisters, and it's the worst piece of audio I have heard. Fucked me up for a good while and got me to stop being so morbidly curious, because there are some things we just shouldn't see or hear willingly.